Hi, I'm Isabelle Rositano and I'm an EMF SKILLROW Athlete, which I'm super excited about because I get to use these amazing SKILLROW ergos. I've got a background in rugby, AFL and rowing and currently I'm an Australian athlete competing internationally in canoe sprint and bobsled. My ultimate goal is to get to the Olympics and I really want to do the best I can on an international level for Australia. And to do that, I'm so lucky to be part of the EMF team and training here. Here we have our awesome SKILLROW ergo, and setup is one of the most important things to make sure you maximize your workout. So one of the first things we have, and a common mistake I often see, is with the foot straps. So you really want to make sure that the strap of this is getting placed around the widest part of your forefoot there. So when I usually set up on level 4. As you can see, it's right over the middle of my foot there. If you don't want that to be too high, no. And you don't want it to be too low either. No, we don't want that. So we want it right in the middle there. So you simply put your feet in, like so, and tighten them up, like that. Awesome, so once you found yourself sitting on the ergo, the next step is to choose your resistance. And this ultimately depends on what type of workout you're doing, but I recommend for a beginner to just start in the middle, or if you're doing a 2K, try and go for the middle resistance. If you're going for rowing, what that means is that your flywheel is set at a lighter resistance, so you'll be pulling less resistance. If you have it set at power, it's going to be a higher resistance, which means you're going to require a lot of power to get through with the stroke. So I have it set in the middle here. In comparison to a Concept 2 rower, that sits at about a 5. But the benefit of the SKILLROW being a magnetic kind of resistance is it's going to feel a lot more like it would if you were rowing on the water, which is pretty cool. So once you've got the resistance set up, you've got your feet set up, the next most important thing is your setup. So a good exercise to do is actually to try rowing for a few strokes without the foot straps on. But it's just important to make sure that you always keep your core engaged throughout the stroke and that you're kind of sitting a bit upright like this. So another good exercise to do when you first start is always remember you're going arms, bodies, and then legs, bodies, arms. That's just something really simple you can remember to make sure that you avoid pulling with your back. And when we pull with the back, we know that we end up with a sore back. So this is really the technique really slowed down, is it's arms, bodies, legs, bodies, arms. Arms, bodies, legs, bodies, arms. And a good exercise we always start off with, even in a rowing boat, is just doing a few strokes like this. So making sure that you're not leaning forward, you're not leaning back, you're just upright at the finish and doing arms only. And this gives you an idea of where you should be sitting in the boat. And then after that, you can move to bodies and arms. Arms, bodies. And when we move with the legs, each quarter of the slide is a quarter. So what I mean by that is this is 1/4, half, 3/4, and full. So while we're warming up, we might go 1/4, half, 3/4, and full. And that's a really good way, by separating the slide, that you can make sure you're using your legs and the right muscles throughout your stroke. Okay, so in regards to the handle and where it should finish, you want it finishing at your bra strap. If you don't wear a bra, that's just a bit below your nipples, so it should feel quite comfortable there. You don't want to ever finish with the handle up here. You don't want to finish with the handle down here. It should be coming nice and straight back. You shouldn't be leaning too far back or too far forward at the finish. It should really be at this type of angle, nice and comfortable. When you're coming forward, the recovery is always kind of your recovery time and your preparation for the next stroke. So you do want it to be a bit longer during your recovery and a bit quicker, legs down, during the stroke. So as you come forward, you don't want to go too far low, you don't want to go too far high. Again, you want to keep this should be as flat as possible. A good way to make sure that you're doing that is to watch this and make sure that it's not going left to right or up to down. That can show you that you might accidentally be moving it a bit. Now, something which I'm notorious for is a bit of a lunge at the catch. We shouldn't do that. we should have our arms and our bodies as far forward as we can during the stroke, so that when we get here, our first movement are the legs going back. So we want to be like that, coming forward. So again, watching that we're not dropping and that we're not suddenly lunging during that last movement there. Another thing I sometimes see, and a really good exercise for this, is rowing without the straps on. People lifting their heels up. So what you should be doing when you row is all your pressure in your feet, think about pointing your toes, and that way you won't be coming up here, but you'll be having your feet onto the plates. And that just, I guess, helps with power, but if you're rowing in a boat, it also makes sure that you don't accidentally throw any of your teammates out onto the water. If you're finding that you don't have the flexibility yet to be able to go to the catch and keep your heels down, a good way to build up to that is simply to be rowing at half slide. That wasn't a good stroke, don't take technique from that, but to be rowing at half slide or quarter slide. Something else I see is using the back, which we don't want to see. So I think that looks something like this, and a bit like that. So if you do that, it might look better, which is why people tend to do it, because you see that you're getting a higher wattage and you're getting a higher power output. But unfortunately, you are sacrificing your skeletal muscle system there. And we want to make sure that we do keep it nice and long, because in the long run, that's going to give you the maximum benefit. And also, again, if you're rowing in a boat, that's the best way to do it. So here we have our time, the meters distance, the calories, your watt, which is a great indication of your power output, and your split per 500 meters. With your watts, as I've mentioned before, don't get stuck in the trap of thinking that because you're getting better watts that your technique might be better, because you might end up with an injury. So it's super important to, if you're new to rowing, just have a quick Google and make sure that you're doing the technique right, first and foremost. That way, in the long run, you're going to be a better rower and getting the maximum benefit from these awesome machines. So up here we have your rating. So if you're sprinting, it'll be around 40. That's what the Olympians do in the last 250 meters. But if you're going for a 30-minute row, you want that number to be about 18 to 20. That way you can focus on the technique and really using your legs and the right muscles. And something to save your neck and your back is to make sure that you are looking straight forward. So your head and your eyes should always be up when you're rowing. Sometimes when you're tired in any exercise, you might tend to get your head down. But if you're wearing a hat, it's a good indication you should be having a flat line there. So you don't want to be looking up. You don't want to be looking down too far. You just want to have a nice straight line, eyes forward, eyes up. And it's a good thing to remember to distract you too. If you're doing a long 2K and you're a bit tired, just say to yourself, eyes up, head up, eyes up. And it also means that you get to see how many watts you're pushing out there. All right, yeah, so a really good exercise is to try rowing without the foot straps on, and that gives you an indication of how far back you should lean. You'll find that if you are leaning too far back, you're going to lose your footing. That means you are going a bit too far back. So you should be nice and strong in the core wherever you finish. So that's something we do to make sure that we are in the right position at that finish. That's all for today. I hope you found it super helpful. If you've got any questions or comments, please comment below.